Hey everyone! Today, we're going to learn about an exciting part of history filled with battles, teamwork, and an interesting culture. We're talking about the Jurchen Jin Dynasty. This dynasty, whose name means golden, ruled parts of China, Mongolia, and northern Korea from 1115 to 1234 CE. It's not the same as the Chinese Jin Dynasty from way earlier. This story is all about how the Jurchen people rose to power and changed the region. The Jurchen people came from Manchuria, an area in northeastern Asia. They weren't one big group at first. Instead, they were a bunch of smaller tribes, with the Wanyan clan being the most important. The Jurchen had a mix of ancestors, including nomadic Tungus Mongol people, and the Balhae kingdom, which used to be in Manchuria and northern Korea. They spoke a Tungusic language and lived in small towns and villages near the Liao and Sungari rivers. Some Jurchen were hunters and farmers, while others near China started picking up new ideas and tools from their neighbors. But many of them stayed true to their old ways. One thing the Jurchen were really good at was raising animals, especially horses. They became so skilled at horse breeding that by the 11th century, they were selling around 10,000 horses each year to the Khitan Liao state. Even though they were doing well in trade, they weren't completely free. They had to give the Liao state a yearly tribute of furs, falcons, and pearls. On the bright side, their relationship with the Song dynasty in China was a bit better. The Song would send them yearly gifts like tea, silver, and silk, to avoid any border fights. The Jurchen's relationships with the Liao and Song dynasties were complicated. Sometimes they traded goods, sometimes they paid tributes, and sometimes they fought. The Jurchen got things like rice, grain, and tea from these exchanges, while they traded horses, pearls, and ginseng. But things didn't stay peaceful forever. In the early 1100s, the Jurchen decided they were tired of the Liao's control. They started pushing back and even fought with the Korean kingdom of Goryeo. This set off a series of events that would change the region forever. In 1103 CE, the Jurchen revolted, which caused trouble with Goryeo. Led by their leader, Wanyan, the Jurchen won the first fight. But Goryeo wasn't giving up. In 1107 CE, they sent a special army with cavalry and infantry to deal with the Jurchen. Even though Goryeo had some early wins and built strong defenses, they lost in 1109 CE. The Jurchen's skills in riding horses, shooting arrows, and moving quickly gave them a huge advantage. This win showed just how powerful steppe warriors could be. After this victory, the Jurchen created their own state called the Jin Dynasty. In 1115 CE, Wanyan became their first emperor. Around this time, the Song dynasty decided to team up with the Jurchen Jin to defeat their common enemy, the Liao state. Together, they managed to overthrow the Liao, whose internal problems had made them weak. By 1121 CE, Emperor Aguda had captured the Liao's capital Jehol. 4 years later, the Liao dynasty completely fell apart, and the Jurchen Jin became one of the most powerful forces in the region. And after Emperor Aguda passed away, Emperor Taizong took over in 1123 CE, and he didn't waste a moment. By 1125 CE, he spotted the Song dynasty's weakness in their military. Taizong saw his chance and launched an aggressive campaign into northern China. The Jin army, highly disciplined and equipped, moved swiftly and overwhelmed the defenses. Even Tongguan, one of the most respected Song generals, couldn't hold them off. The Jin forces reached the heart of the Song Empire, surrounding Kaifeng, the capital city. In a devastating turn, they captured Emperor Huizong along with thousands of citizens. To avoid further bloodshed, the Song had no choice but to pay a massive ransom. This marked a critical blow to the Song dynasty, forcing their court to flee south to the Yangtze Valley. In 1138 CE, they established a new capital at Hangzhou, laying the foundations for what became the Southern Song dynasty. The Jin's influence didn't just stop in China. Their growing power sent shockwaves across neighboring Korea. The kingdom of Goryeo, understanding the impossibility of resisting the Jin forces, chose submission as their only path to survival in 1126 CE. They sent envoys to pledge loyalty, knowing that defiance could lead to ruin. When the Song later turned to Goryeo for help in rescuing their captured royal family, Goryeo's King Injong declined. The risks of angering the Jin were far too great, as their military strength had already made them the dominant force in the region. Allies and foes alike tread carefully, knowing the consequences of defiance. At the height of their power, the Jin dynasty moved their capital in 1153 CE from Shangjing, now modern-day Harbin, to Yanjing, which we know as Beijing. This strategic relocation showcased their control over the former Liao territory. Following the example of many states close to China, the Jin adopted elements of Chinese culture and administration. China, long admired for its sophisticated systems, inspired the Jin to incorporate its bureaucracy and organization. They even developed their own writing system, influenced by Chinese characters. Yet this cultural blending was not without controversy. Within the Jin, a divide formed. Many Jurchen traditionalists resisted the adoption of Chinese customs, feeling it undermined their heritage. This cultural tension reached its peak in 1161 CE, when Emperor Hailingwang was assassinated, a direct result of the clash between modernizers and traditionalists. Emperor Shizong, who succeeded him, aimed to mend these divisions. He championed Jurchen traditions by emphasizing the use of the Jurchen language. Schools teaching Jurchen flourished, civil service exams featured Jurchen texts, and art celebrated traditional practices like hunting. Stunning artworks, depicting falconry and other native customs, symbolized a culture fighting to preserve its identity. Despite these efforts, by the late 1100s, Jin rulers increasingly viewed themselves as the heirs of Chinese culture, reflecting their vast territorial control over Chinese lands. But the Jin's golden age was not to last. The early 13th century brought a new threat: the Mongols. Led by the relentless and brilliant Genghis Khan, the Mongols launched relentless campaigns against the Jin starting in 1205 CE. By 1211 CE, they escalated their efforts with two formidable armies, each numbering 50,000. Though the Jin boasted a massive military of 300,000 infantry and 150,000 cavalry, they were no match for the Mongols' superior strategies. Genghis Khan employed a ruthless yet effective approach: sack cities, retreat, and let the Jin struggle with the aftermath. Some cities faced repeated devastation, leaving their populations decimated and their defenses shattered. Chaos engulfed the Jin state as they struggled to contain the Mongol onslaught. Internal strife compounded the Jin's problems. Corruption weakened their government, and natural disasters like floods strained their resources further. In 1213 CE, Emperor Faidi fell victim to an assassination plot orchestrated by one of his own generals. This general, however, didn't last long, as he too was assassinated just 2 months later. Desperation forced the Jin to retreat south and pay tribute to the Mongols, hoping to stave off complete annihilation. Yet this fragile truce didn't last long. In 1215 CE, the Mongols launched another devastating assault, reducing the Jin state to a shadow of its former self. Finally, in 1234 CE, under the leadership of Ogedei Khan, the Mongols delivered the final blow, erasing the Jin dynasty from existence. However, the story of the Jurchen people didn't end there. Their resilience endured through centuries. Even after their dynasty fell, the Jurchen continued to raid northern Korea during the 14th and 15th centuries. By the 17th century, they had transformed themselves into the Manchurians, a force to be reckoned with once again. In 1636 CE, they conquered the Korean peninsula, ushering in a new era and proving that their legacy was far from over.